Okay.
Right, so as I briefly said earlier then, I'm going to talk to you today about my dissertations and findings. So just to give you an overview, I've been looking at, within a company, specific a training company, is does performance management improve employee engagement and organisational performance, and how it goes about doing that. So the two main areas we're going to be looking at is employee engagement and performance management. So really then, to understand it, we need to understand what employee engagement is. And it's a buzzword everywhere now, you hear it everywhere, it's in the HR arena, it's every other word, but even all the big companies, Marks and Spencer, Sainsbury's, all the multinational companies, if everyone is talking about it, all the CEOs, and whether they actually have an engaged workforce, they are claiming to, simply on the basis of their employee attitude surveys annually. However, the problem is often they have these surveys in place, employees will carry them out, response rates aren't always good as employees don't value them, and the main reason because of this is employees have these surveys being issued to them, they can't see anything being done with the results, or if findings do represent problems or areas of challenges, they're continuing on year, so the following year the percentage just increase, whereas in reality it should decrease from what we found and from putting solutions in place, so that's a huge problem. Another thing as well is an argument of whether employee engagement is new. Is this something new, or does it touch upon existing theories? We have motivation, organisational citizen behaviour, employee commitment. And really it's important to see employee engagement as a new construct in its own right, but it does touch upon these things, and that's where organisations in this day and age should by now be equipped to deal with it, but it seemed to be as the problem, and it isn't quite the case. So as I said, despite it being a hot topic and a buzzword, there is confusion and disagreement, and a lot of organisations can't actually define what engagement is, and they can't even say in their particular organisation what an engaged employee looks like and how they differ from a disengaged employee. And what research suggests is in the McLeod and Clark review, which looks at over 100 organisations and how engagement differs in each one, is that unless we can clearly define employee engagement and an organisation understands what they want an engaged employee to look like in their organisation, then it should be abandoned. So although it is associated with benefits, it's important you understand it in your organisation specifically, otherwise sometimes it can actually create more harm than good to the culture. So to move the inquiry forward then, for the purpose of my research, I took the definition that employee engagement as a workplace approach is designed to ensure that all the organisations are committed to achieving organisational success. But along with that, it's about them gaining their self-awareness and meaningfulness in terms of them and their job and what it means for them. So why do we bother with employee engagement? So as I said, it's associated with benefits. It is said that if you have an engaged workforce, your chances are you're going to have improved chances of changing the business objectives, which come under productivity. So your levels of productivity are said to improve. If you're having an employee who's willing to go the extra mile, doesn't mind staying beyond after work, or even when they're during their work hours, puts everything in, thinks outside the box, so we have increased innovation. They're willing to think of new ideas, bring new ideas to the table. So with your recruitment selection, you want somebody who is going to come in and they fit with the culture, but they also challenge the culture, and now they bring with them their new ideas. Enhances your employer brand. A bit like Marks and Spencer's, they are out there at the moment and they publish their results. So if you go online, you can get access to their employee engagement results. They're an advocate for it, so they're seen as being a company out there who's leading the way, and there's no reason why the small companies within the arena they compete in can't be seen as leading the way and achieving the same benefits. Enhanced customer service. A lot of employees have a face-to-face role, and managing directors want to be able to trust their employees and trust the service that's going out there. If your employee isn't engaged and equipped with what's going on in the organisation and happy in their job, then the likelihood of them providing good customer service is being reduced. Another thing is teamwork. It's really important. Teamwork and collaboration in any organisation is an element of success. If you don't have a team where you trust, like Mandy touched on communication, you're not going to be able to be the best you can be. But if you have employees within that team who are disengaged, the effect that can have is detrimental on other employees and bringing them down with them. So it's really important in the organisation, if we can spot areas through such surveys our employees as disengaged employees, is to look back and strip it back, go back to basics. What's causing it? How can team members help? What are the basics being put in place that we can overcome it? Bring them into recruitment. Obviously, retention is improved if we have an engaged workforce. And like Mandy's just gone through the cost of recruitment, we have a high turnover of staff because of lack of engagement and simple things that we put in place. The costs that you're experiencing over things that can be avoided are huge. So, for employee engagement then to be the key to success, we need to make it an end-to-end practice. So as I said about the employee attitude surveys, they are a good tool to use, but not in isolation. They need to be used and supported with other tools. And the problem is many organisations have one element of either measuring employee engagement but nothing to promote it or facilitate it, or they'll have their elements to promote it as an existing format, but they don't integrate it to everything else in the organisation. So employee engagement, for to be successful and to make a difference to your employees and hence your workplace and productivity levels and turnover, needs to be integrated both horizontally, so across all the practices. So if you've got your HR practices, you need your performance management to integrate with your employee engagement. So do your managers get assessed on how well they carry out performance appraisals? Because that is having an impact on the employees below them engagement levels. If you're not assessing how well they can carry out performance, that's affecting the trust between the relationship and you're affecting the integration horizontally. We also need to look at vertically, so does the vision of the organisation, is that brought down to the employees at the lower level? Do your employees, would they be able to say to you, the company want to be in 5 years' time in this position, or would they not be able to? From my research, the company I did, they do spend a lot of time, they have an activity day every year where the vision and the mission gets explained to staff. But having said that, when I asked them, could you actually say what the mission is? A lot of the sponsors I had, or if you put me on the spot, I can't say it. But if it was drummed into them that well, and the vision was something that the organisation lived and breathed by and was part of their culture, we'd expect them to be able to say it. So performance management then, as a way of enhancing employee engagement. Organisations have been focusing on performance management as a way to improve organisation performance and individual performance. The problem is that there is a perception that by employees, research has shown that performance management is nothing but sort of a box-ticking exercise. These bold statements exist, such as really in the history of management, as a management practice, promised so much, but delivered so little. And one of the reasons for this is performance management is often associated with when things are going wrong. Oh, I don't want this employee anymore, I need them out, let's performance management, let's out. But it's not, it should be seen as a development review. And the company I did my research on, they do adopt this approach and they do implement it as a development review. And as a result, when asking the employees on their perceptions of their reviews, all employees did have a positive perception and they were willing to get involved. So we need to see how performance management can improve employee engagement, and what that will need is adopting and fostering an approach on employee engagement when implementing development reviews. And there's really easy steps, and often or not, they come within the normal development review process, but what's found from the implementation problems that's been addressed in the literature is these are the things that are causing the problems with performance management. So we've got our drivers of engagement then, which all tie nicely into performance management. So if we look at engaging line manager, you need a line manager that is going to be able to take your opinions on board and encourage you to be honest. It's a bit like if you make your performance appraisals all about reward and the money incentive, there's going to be no honest communication about how you're feeling in your role, what support you need, and as a manager you need to come prepared to this in knowing what level your employees are at, how can you help them, possible things to discuss at the meeting, and really how can you make them do the best they can be, but you've got to want them to be the best they can be. Often managers don't receive the training that they need to be an engaging line manager. They don't feel confident in carrying out performance appraisals because they've never done it before. Often managers will fall into a position of having employees beneath them and be expected to be at a level to deliver this training where having been backed up. So I think if in your organisation, if you are aware of training would be an incentive, an easy training workshop on the do's and don'ts of performance management could make a huge difference. And if it is impacting things such as like absent levels and obviously people leaving the organisation, a training session of an hour going out to employees at the hour cost versus the cost of recruitment is a huge saving. As I said, so there is strategic leadership with regards to the vision. Companies have these huge statements of what they're going to achieve, how they're going to get there, but it's important through the development reviews, employees know how they're contributing. So their objectives, if their sales targets are to reach 5.5k for the month, how is that relating back to the vision for the organisation, so they can see their contribution, so they feel like they're achieving, to give them a sense of fulfilment, which is a key part of engagement. Employee voice. Employees need to have a say is a key thing. If employees feel like their voice isn't heard and their opinions aren't welcomed and not even taken on board and that's something comes to them, but just having that openness to discuss them, then there is going to be some major problems in the organisation. And the development review gives a great chance for employees to have their say. It's simple that you give an employee input form beforehand, and from this they can write down what they want to discuss, how they've done for the past year, where they think their development areas are. But as a manager, it's important not to just see this form as the form's being complete and put it at the back of the shelf. It's important you analyse this before you go into the meeting, because it will give you a great perception of where the employee is at and where they need. It's a bit like assessment and recruitment. When you get an idea of who the individual is, that's what an employee input form can do. And integrity is a huge thing. For employees to be engaged, there must be an element of trust. And trust is huge in any engagement strategy. If employees feel like the organisation is saying one thing and doing another, this is going to damage the trust. So if they don't feel that they can trust their line managers, because their line manager last year promised them they could go on this training course, there was funding, they could do this, they could do that, but it never delivered, these development reviews are then nothing but a box-ticking exercise because nothing's been done with them afterwards. So these tie nicely into the barriers in that. So if there's a lack of awareness about what engagement is, as I touched upon earlier, uncertainty how to begin engaging the workforce, key areas are such as the tools you already practice every year, your development reviews, it's easy ways, it's just about making employee engagement an end-to-end practice. Middle and line management not buying into it. So if they don't see that engagement is necessary, or we haven't got an engaged workforce, it doesn't matter, we just need to do the development reviews to get my manager off my back. It really is a pointless exercise and a waste of resources. Underestimating the effects engagement can have. So at the beginning we looked at the benefits, the effect it can have on the bottom line, enhanced productivity. These should remain the focus and the reason for why we're looking at engagement in the first place. So key findings then from my research for the development reviews to help enhancing employee engagement. You need to explain the purpose. If there's a conflict in purpose, it's likely to feel that an employee hasn't got out the development review what they should have, which can result in them being disengaged. But if it's broken down, a guidance document can be issued. This is the reason why we're looking to do the development reviews. This is what I want you to get out of it. This is what we're getting out of it. Is there anything else you would like to get out of it? Then it's encouraging that employee voice to speak up and that employee buy-in. Managers, as I said, require training in order to carry out the development reviews confidently and to enable procedural fairness and justice. Research shows that if a manager doesn't carry out fair and there's a lack of trust, then employees don't buy into what is said, this can really jeopardise not only an employee's ability to be engaged in this organisation, but going on into other organisations also, so it's got an ongoing problem. And trust is a significant element of any successful development review. And there needs to be trust from the line manager down. You need to trust that your employee is giving you accurate information. So these employee input forms, it's not about saying, he said he's put 5k down, but actually in reality he only achieved 3.5k, so we need to get performance management, he's lying. It's about saying, oh, what's the breakdown of this? Because it may be that they brought down in marketing strategies, rather than seeing it just as a hard figure. And give employees time to achieve their training and development objectives. A huge thing I found in the organisation I've done my study on is they're advocates of training, and the employees have an unlimited choice to do what courses they want to do. But however, a problem the employees identified is they're not given the chance to do the training. So they work their job 9 to 5, and often them are doing a lot more than that because of the needs and demands of the job. They're not given the time then to complete their training, so it is becoming a box ticking exercise in the training. So they have these qualifications, but they're no further developed, and that really is a waste of investment of resources. And as I said, the HR practices need to be integrated, both horizontally and vertically. So they need to be aligned with the vision and what the companies are trying to achieve, but also, does your performance management practices align with your recruitment? So are you getting the right people in for the right job that are going to be engaged, who understand the vision from coming in, who are then going into the development reviews, who have been promised their probation reviews, who are consistent? Because it is often in companies, employees are subject to the offer of a 6-month probationary period. However, the probationary period is only ever looked at if the problem addresses, rather than having the reviews every single month to address any issues, but not only issues, development. So to conclude then, employee engagement and performance management will continue to be essential for companies to gain competitive advantage and performance outcomes, and research demonstrates that the drivers of employee engagement positively relate to employee engagement and performance. So it is suggested that for organisations to get this enhanced level of engagement, you need to have this end-to-end focus, so look at the whole organisation, all the practices and the tools. Performance management as a tool that should be being carried out, and often is, such as the appraisal being the most common. You can foster employee engagement so that it enhances engagement levels and improves performance. So thank you for listening, and any questions?
Thank you, Laura. Excellent. Well done. Effervescent, you're full of passion. You love it. Absolutely love it. That's great.